Welcome to Tea and Tales 2017. My name is Nikki, I'm the curator here, and our theme this year is Canada 150. We're exploring 150 years of history in Pemberton. And today we have two presenters, Lois Joseph and Georgina Nelson, who will be telling us an important story about Mount Currie schools. The museum's collection mandate includes those who were here first, and we've always been looking for stories for the community collection from Mount Currie. An important story in the history of Pemberton is the establishment of Mount Currie schools that ensure Lil'wat children are immersed in their own language and culture. The museum's always collected information about local schools since the turn of the century, and we wanted to share this story with you and to collect it. Our two presenters today have been intimately involved as teachers and leaders in establishing the Mount Currie school system, and we're honored to have them share their stories here today. Please note that all of our presentations are filmed for the community record, and we put them up on our website about a week after each presentation. And we wanted to thank our local presenters, our volunteer bakers, and all of you for joining us. I just want to start by giving you a little bit of information about our presenters today. So first, since the 1960s, Georgina Nelson lobbied for funding for Lil'wat Nation to take over their own school and education system, and has served on the Mount Currie Board of Education for the past 35 years. Her belief is without our language and culture, we would no longer be Lil'wat. She's a fluent speaker of the Lil'wat language and became one of the founders of the Tazil Community School. She's also been involved with First Nations Education Steering Committee, Language Subcommittee, and has spent her life advocating for the inclusion of Lil'wat language and culture in all schools. She's spent her life supporting Lil'wat children and encouraging them to be proud of their heritage. And she's traveled the world to share her story, including the UN, to share how Lil'wat Nation is revitalizing the language. And Georgina Nelson is, in a true sense, a language champion. Lois Joseph started teaching right out of high school and received her education, BA, in 1986, after taking courses in the evening and through summer holidays. She's taught grades 4 to 7, high school, and adult education throughout her 30 years of teaching in schools. She also teaches the Lil'wat language and traditional arts. And in 1993, she developed a new dance group, which is the Íswalh loon dance group. And over the years, she trained many young children, youth, and adults in the dances and traditions specific to Lil'wat Nation. Lois is the manager for the Lil'wat Culture Center fully since 2005, and she's been sitting as a Mount Currie Band Councilor for the last 24 years. And is also a board of director for the Squamish Líl Cultural Center in Whistler. Lois's ancestral name means mother of all. Thank you very much, and we'll turn it over.
Mamia. Mamia is my ancestral name, which means mother of all. My dad and his sister gave me the name, and Lord knows, I don't know why they called me mother of all. Probably because I've always been a busybody. And, but I'm very proud of my name. I'm Lil'wat, and as Nikki has stated, I've been busy right out of high school, and so has my mom. And I'm going to tell a story, as she tells her story, of how I got involved. And my mom has 3 traditional names. Holland, she gave to my, shared with my daughter. Chinia, who she shared with my granddaughter, Chinia is the one she really uses now. And Tikhwa, who also became a teacher and teaches at the school now, is her great-granddaughter. Right? Is that have it right?
My granddaughter.
Oh, your granddaughter. Okay. So she has three traditional names and received them from various people in the community as she was growing up. Georgina is her English name, and Jane was the other one. She is formerly a Williams and married my dad Albert, who is a Nelson. So hence Georgina Nelson. We're happy to be here. So, Mom, I would like you to tell your story from the beginning on how you got the school started.
so long ago, I hope I can remember. Well, 1970, I think, when we first started, and we had the day school, and then some of our kids had to move to Pemberton because the DIA says we're going to move certain grades to Pemberton, and so my son Alvin and his cousin Daryl, they came to Signal Hill, and then at the time they were coming, and then they got kicked out of school from Signal Hill. I don't know why, but I didn't go and see what it was. But I said, well, they went home on the track, walking the tracks. So I said, I got really worried. So I was telling my sister, Mary Louise, she was the principal for the day school. And she didn't say anything to me, but she said, well, it's time you parents take over your own school, otherwise you're not gonna, well, everybody will forget the language if you don't. So that's how it got started, me and a few parents. And that's how we started. We started talking what we should do to take over our own school. And so I'll get our kids back into the school again. And so that's what we did.
Had the day school closed then, by then too?
No, it was still open, and my mom was working then as a homeschool coordinator, working in education already in the band office. And DIA was threatening to close the school down because, and so that's why they wanted to move to Pemberton, the grade 5, 6, and 7s. And then but the little one still went there, but that school was condemned and they weren't going to give any more funding to rebuild that school. So this is when my brother and our cousin got into trouble in school and walked the tracks. They found, we've lost a lot of people on the tracks, so it was actually a safety issue as well. So she started calling the Board of Education. She was working in with the board at the time, right? And Edith, and so all the board people pulled their kids together. That's when the basement school started.
We had about 14 kids to start with, with all the different ages. And we didn't even have a classroom. So they were going to the old hall, you know how old the hall was, and no feet. So the kids had to dress up in their winter clothes, and they had to go to school in their winter clothes. And then it used to be so cold then. And so the teacher says, "Why don't we just go skiing?" You know, okay, well,
I was ready for that.
we can get skiing for free because we let them, because that's our territory too. It's, like Whistler's our territory. So they let our kids for free. So they would go skiing, get in the van, and where it's warm, and they'll be doing their homework.
That sounds like a good school.
Well, we tried everything.
Doing the reading and math in the back of a panel. The panels didn't have seats,
Yeah.
so all the kids would jump in there, and they would drive them to skiing. But he'd make them read. John Williams, Mary Louise's husband, was the driver.
And a teacher.
And a teacher.
Oh, they were both teachers.
They're both teachers.
Yeah.
Well, Mary was from university with John. Just became. We all kind of just became teachers because we had to at the time. But so then, that's when they took the bell. I don't know if you remember. Our bell went to Whistler to as well.
Yeah, so we're going to have free skating because our bell went to Whistler. The big bell,
Like
from the
66
church.
or 67.
Yes, it's back in our community now.
Yeah.
But so they went to school. That was my sister, who is now 50. She was one of the students, right? She was one of the younger ones. They have pictures of themselves skiing. So that was their first school. And we'd go. I mean, they'd go in the classroom and teach, and then we could see their breathing, groups on gloves and everything, but they'd still go to school.
They didn't mind though.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
They just got used to.
They enjoyed that. Then Mom started lobbying for the funding.
And it took a long time. I even hitchhiked to Vancouver. I hitchhiked because we was not enough money, you know, to go lobbying for the money from DIA, and then we go there. And then my husband Albert says, "You're not going to hitchhike by yourself anymore. I'm going to go with you." Because he said it's too dangerous now to hitchhike.
He was a logger.
So he started taking the day off just to go hitchhike with me. So anyhow, we struggled a bit, but we didn't complain. We just kept working, trying to do what they want us to do, back and forth, back and forth. It took 10 years for us to get the new school. Back and forth, back and forth. Oh, you got to do it this way. I go and do it that way. And then they said, I bring it in, and they would say, oh, you got to go this way. And you can build a school on a floodplain. Okay, we have a place to build it. And I was just sitting there one day, after 10 years, this guy from the Department of Indian Affairs came and asked for me at the band office. So going, oh, I heard you asking for me. Oh, where do you want your school?
Finally.
I looked at him, I didn't want. So I said, oh well, I'll bring you up. And there was no road up there yet.
Right.
So I brought him up there, and I was trying to walk around up there where the school is now, and then walking around there and trying to, where should I put the school? And so I said, oh, I can see the lake from here. This is where we'll have it. So that's how come the school's there.
And they walked on, it was just trails for the cattle and the horses. That's where they grazed, up in that area.
So what year was that then?
Yeah, I took over our grazing.
What year was that, do you remember?
1980. I think it is.
1970. Well,
Yeah.
you started lobbying for the funding
Yeah,
for
but
10 years.
same with for the new school as well. So I think 1980.
1970, early 70s.
Yeah, well, that's when I started, but it didn't come until around 1980.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then DIA, all these, they kept putting all these obstacles in front of her. They told her she was not educated enough. And what did you tell them?
I said, they called me, you're not educated enough to take over your own school. Oh yes, I am. I have 6 or 8 kids there with me now, so I know what I want for them. So that's what happened.
And we, as growing up, we learned all off the land. And when I was going to the day school, they put us on horses, back of a horse, and the horse would take us to school. The horses would go to the barn. We were pretty young, and we could often walk to school. And the horses would just wait there for us till we come back, and then they'd bring us back home again. So the school started.
School started.
What happened when they said you couldn't build your school, you need this and this and this?
Well, he said I had to have, and then the board member said that we had to have our own teachers from the community, because we wanted to have the language as well. And so DIA says, well, you can't have teachers that are not certified. So I started the teacher training program. So we can give you money enough for 15, teacher trainees. So I said, well, and then that's how come we tell her, you have to go in as a teacher. I'm trying to get enough students so I can keep the money. We got to 14 and I couldn't. So I put my own name in there.
So you taught yourself?
Yeah.
She was 1 credit away from her degree, which was her math, and she tried it more than once, never did get her math.
I never did have time to take it, that's all.
And she did all the math though for the building the school, right? So she should have got it as an honor for me. But when I didn't go to Pemberton, like when they moved us, like when I was grade 7, we were still, I think I was still in the day school. They moved us back there. After my brothers were kicked out of school. And so I went up to grade 7, and then I was sent to Vancouver on the boarding home program. It wasn't the residential school, but there was another part to it. I think it's in the 60s school, where they felt if we went to elsewhere, away from our people, that we'd become more educated. I was 13 at the time, and I never had been away from my parents for more than a week. But we were put on the train back to North Vancouver and put into different homes of people that applied for students in Vancouver. And I had really long black hair then. My first home was with an Italian family in New Westminster. I know where that is now. I didn't know where I was at the time, but about 15 of us were taken out that way, but we were all spread out all over the Lower Mainland. And I think I lasted 10 days at that first home because it was, I had to stay in the room, and I would go to, during the day I'd go to a girls' school, all girls' school, and wear those uniforms. But they'd say, call me out for breakfast or for dinner, and said that they were finished now, so I can come and eat. So I would eat on my own. And then the boy, I really remember that young boy, he would stand at the door like that, making sure I wasn't going to steal any cutlery or anything. And then I'd have to go back to my room. Then they'd say, you can watch a half-an-hour program on TV. So they'd call me out to the living room. And the mother would put a towel behind my head, behind my back, because she was afraid that my long black hair would get her couch dirty. And so that went on for 10 days, so I got a hold of Mom and I said, if you guys don't come get me, I'm going to run away. So they came that night about 3 or 4 in the morning and picked me up, and I was moved to another home, and that one, the rest of the homes were really good experiences. And I did graduate on an academic program from Carson Graham in 1974. It kind of ages me. But in the meantime, when she was at home telling her family, you have to take this program, you know, this is why it was mostly family. And people used to, I remember going through this, people used to believe it was nepotism, because my aunts were all in there, I was, and all family, and it's because she said no one would apply for it or sign up with her. So she said, you're taking. And then she of course, she put her name in for the last one, because they really tried to put all these obstacles in front of her so that she was not capable of building a school or doing this. So she said that. So we didn't have a choice. So we all went to school. They actually put me as soon as I graduated, in the classroom, and I was going to school at nights.
Yes.
And during the summers, but we taught the kids during the day. And I remember when I graduated.
And at the same time, you were starting your own family too.
Yes. I already had one boy, lucky me. And Mom and Dad had him. I actually went home and kidnapped him, because I went back to high school about 4 days after he was born, and to finish my grade 11, 12, and I did grade 11, 12 in 1 year, because I had my son. I brought him home, and then I went home, and Mom and them were saying, no, you're too young, you can't look after him and go to school too. I said, yes, I can. I went back and I got at my own place. I went to welfare, and I said, I want to bring my baby with me. So he was 6 months at the time, I think. And they gave me funding for an apartment, so I did go and get that apartment. Then I went home. I used to hitchhike home every Friday to visit him and catch the train back. That was when it was $2.35 Indian fare. So I went home, and they didn't want me to take him, so I just packed him. I told her brother Larry, Uncle, you have to bring me to the train. I came out of the bedroom and I had Nathan, my oldest son's Nathan, and I had him under my arm, and I had his bags. I said, I'm taking him, and I'm going back to school. So I did. that I graduated when I finished school. So I graduated June 26th, and her program was starting July 3rd that year. I came home from school this time after partying for my graduation over there. I think we had 2 weeks of partying or something, but we all came home on the train, and then she said, "You're going to take this teacher training program because I need everybody to." So this is why I was already registered. They're registered to be a nurse, to take my nursing. I don't know how I could be a nurse now. But so then that's when I started teaching and having my own class because she took over. Then you had to get electricians.
Yeah, and then, well, I said, how come we don't have our own carpenters building our own houses? We always have to hire outside people. Well, because your carpenters are not certified carpenters. Okay, so I had a carpenter training course going through. And then one of our own electricians, so I had to get an electrician, they had to go to school too, and then same with the plumbers. So I had that going 1 year.
Apprenticeship program as well.
So that's how come we had our own. I didn't know what I was doing, but
But you were determined.
Okay.
So what did you do when you started your first budget?
Well, I had board members and I had a big brown sheet, like.
The fish wrap.
So I asked the board members, we have to do our own budget, so you guys have to help. I don't want to do it on my own. I said, you guys have to help me. So then they started going, we need how many teachers, we need, custodians, and we need to pay the hydro, all the different things, so we had to make a budget for that. How many teachers you need, and how much is that going to be? So they were good, those parents were good, mothers, most of the mothers, and I think there was only two guys there. So that's how we did. So, and then.
And did you have to keep fighting for funding
I
every year?
had to, yeah, just to get more and more, they never ever give us enough.
But did they ever threaten to take the funding?
Oh yeah, they
All the time.
all the time, yeah. I think even now, we still gotta do that. So, but even though now, it's much easier, because, with people that do the budgets, they all have to do it on computers now. And we were the first ones that had to get a computer too. We were working on a computer, and my sister Lorna says, she was talking to the computer, and then the computer says, "Oh, that's okay." She was talking.
And the computer answered.
She was kind of like, because she didn't really know how to work the computers. So that's what happened. So we had our own computers, and then we had another guy that was coming in to help me do the budget on computer. So
That would have been through the 90s?
yes, so that was good. And then, so I worked there until, I think, just when the new school was starting, and then we got the school going. After we got the school going, and then some other people took over, like the buildings and stuff like that.
1984.
Yeah,
We moved in there.
Mhm.
I remember that.
So, anyhow, but then I was involved for, I was on school board too,
Yes.
so I was going there, and then I got involved taking, for the book cullet, and what I just did lately. To get the language going in our schools, so I did that too, so. But I think they're teaching languages in Mill Hill.
Yes.
They are now.
But then we just couldn't get no teachers because they weren't certified to come and teach, the language people at our food. It's hard to get people at our food.
Her brother, she mentioned Lorna as her sister, Dr. Lorna Williams. Bert is her brother, he's a teacher. Carrie Williams, Trudy.
Mhm.
So all her sisters and brothers, she told them to go to school, take her program. And some of her own kids.
Yeah, I can't get nobody else. So I forced them into it. It's like my sister Trudy, we needed a welding teacher. So
She had to go to the weld.
that's how come Trudy became a welder.
Yeah, and I taught grade 4 and 5, like Nikki was saying. And then got into culture, regalia making. I worked with my grandmother, Adelina, Mom's mom, helping with the dance group. She had the dance group at the time. And
Adelina did?
Adelina Williams. And it was called Lil'wat Hand Drummers and Singers. I think it's what it was, isn't it?
Mhm.
And when she had told the family when she passed away that they were to hand the group to me, I was right out of high school. I didn't even understand. It was 1990, I think.
Mhm.
I was already teaching grade 4, but I was young and I was not into dancing or sewing for that matter. I mean, I used to help her all the time and drive her, take her here and there and help her. But so they said at a general meeting in Mount Currie, one of our big meetings, that I was to take the dance group over. And I didn't have any idea how I was going to do that. And I did have some Decatur kids who are family too in my classroom. And so I brought in a couple of drummers and we just start drumming in my classroom and then do it at lunchtime for the parents or for the school board or whatever. And just kept building and building on the group. Eventually we started having at this student's house and that student's house. We just moved once a week to drum and sing and dance at different people's homes. And then we were getting invited out here to perform and in Whistler. So I started making regalia for them, the leather regalia. So I started doing that, and then that's why my wrists are good now because cutting all the leather. And, so we built up the dance group, and then I got into trouble at one point from some of our own people. They were saying I was exploiting our children. And then I had to go back on what my grandmother used to tell me, if anyone wants to learn, you need to teach them. And you pass it on to others, she always said. And I said, no, we aren't. And she said, and you're not exploiting. You are teaching them who they are, and you're letting the world know that we're still here, and we're practicing our culture and our language, and our dances and our songs. Because our dances and our songs all tell stories, and they tell stories of who we are as Lil'wat Nation. So that kept me going. So I jumped through that.
And you said today there's 100 dancers?
If we could bring everyone out now in their regalia and the drummers, singers, and dancers, 160, I guess. Last year, we go to the Hopier celebration. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's the Nishka celebration. They invite different dance groups in Vancouver at the Peony Grounds in February. So I think I've been bringing the group 6 years. The first time we went, I didn't even go myself, I just set it up, but 24 people went. The second year, I think we had about 60. The third year, 140, then 144, then now we're up to 160. This is bringing dancers, singers, and drummers and elders to Vancouver, setting up the hotel, setting up the travel, making all the regalia, and then we dance we have a very large group. So this is why I say that the dance group has built up to that many.
We started with a few seeds and now there's
Yes.
many.
And we do have immersion school now too. Teach a language, because when we first took over, that was the board's dream, is to have an immersion school, the whole school, but at least we just have it from
their
Up to grade 4.
parents can choose where they want to send their children. They could send them to Hatlola, our school. They could send them to Signal Hill or to the immersion school. So every year, this year you have 14, I think, isn't
Where?
it? In immersion?
20, I think it's 20 something.
24 now?
Yeah.
My youngest sister's oldest son in Haptop, he graduated. The first immersion school just graduated in a couple of years now, right?
Mhm.
So, and they were the most fluent, yeah. And so the school is still going. We are working more on when the first group, of course, were her family again, because she asked all her children to put their kids in school there because nobody they didn't trust that they would excel in their education if they went to immersion. And, parents were afraid. And so that's why she was talking in her own children into putting their kids there. And it was the strongest group that we had because the first group, because they all worked together to make materials. I mean, they didn't really have any money to do a lot of it, and the parents were very, very involved. Today, it's not the same. They're not as involved, so it takes certain kind of people to keep these pulled together and keep the parents involved. So it's not as strong. Her daughter, my sister, is now the immersion teacher, but she's getting her degree now too, so she's going to school. And she's in Hector, the first group's mom. So all Sue's kids went to the immersion school. And then they make their transition into the regular school after.
So do you feel there's more people today speaking traditional language than there were 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think there are more young parents, but then of course we wanted the parents or the moms to come maybe twice a week together so we could teach them the language too. But not too many people were coming in, so I had to try something else.
Yeah.
So, but the kids would go home and talk to their parents in their own language. And people would phone in. You're saying something like this. What does it mean?
What is he saying? And I'm proud to say that I hear that in Pemberton too. My daughter's been really involved in Holland's her name. She's a dancer as well, but she knows a lot of the little ones. They're in daycare or whatever, and speaks language. And they come up and they say, "I'm learning Ulfamilch." They're so cute and they say words and that. And the parents do call us. What is my child saying?
Enroll and find
Yeah,
out.
and so we have to set up some more programs for the parents to learn. And I did that last summer with the new language teachers. I did it. I set up the program through the Culture Center just so that they do what they would do in immersion school. So it's all the daily activities, and then we'd start the morning like that, as if they were students, the two elders that taught them, and they would go through all the steps, repeating, and that's the way we felt. They picked it up more often because they're in the classrooms now teaching the language, but it always gets back into English because it gets to a frustration point if you're not fluent. So,
Yes.
but we admire them for doing it, so we try to help them as much as we can.
Lois, I always look at the graduates from Mount Currie and Pemberton, and it seemed like when we first came there were maybe 8 or 10 students graduating, and now, do you know how many graduated this year? from high
16 from one school.
school? No, from both, I was
Oh,
thinking.
yeah. I
It was
think,
like 30 or so, isn't it?
yes, altogether there was what?
So a lot of kids are graduating from high school and not dropping out. And,
And then we never told the kids where to go. If they want to go to Pemberton, they can go to Pemberton.
yeah.
Because
Or either,
yeah, either
school.
one. Because
Yeah.
my one great grandchildren were one goes up there and then one comes away.
The twins.
The twins. Graduated this year too. So.
And I would really try to support her dream of having all our children in our school and learning our language and culture. Some of the countries Mom visited was Japan and more than once, New Zealand because of their programs, Australia.
I just got invited to go to Africa and end of May, I guess, because now they want to start to build their own schools over there now that I guess their government's going to start giving them money to do that because a lot of the kids don't go to school there. Mm-hmm.
Lois, would you want to talk about the super courses? I think that's so interesting.
Oh yes, when we ran when I moved to high school. I mean, one of the important parts of it was that we do 5-day programs on language and culture, but other other subjects as well. But I was more involved in that when they moved me to high school. We used to. The 5-day courses, although they do the hike in the Stein for 10 days. Well, that one's a longer course because
they still do it.
They still do it, yeah. And we do like canoeing or culture and arts.
And fishing.
Fishing.
Like, when we put our salmon away, they dry it.
Preserve foods.
Yeah.
Hunting.
Hunting.
And they have them 3 times a year. September, in the winter, and in spring. And they, so the kids are together for all those days, and they choose what they would like to learn.
Another kind of immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to, that's part of my job now, is trying to get some elders in there speaking the language so that kids will pick it up.
Because they do understand, they just don't use it all the time, so. They understand.
The ones that were there when Mom first started the school, there were a few fluent speakers, and now they're retiring. So we're running into that, not having teachers, fluent teachers.
Yeah, like Veronica used to teach at the Pembroke High School, language.
Veronica Bicady, it's her sister. Yes?
Speaking of your language, do you remember, I guess it was back in the 80s, a fellow by the name of Jan van Eyck?
Yes.
Because I was working in the library here then, and the couple they came in, and I think his wife was either volunteer or on the board or something, but we saw a lot of them then, and I noticed a couple of years ago, and I haven't seen it yet, I've just clipped things out of the paper, that there's a book that came out called These Are Our Legends. Have you seen that book?
We saw them in our culture center.
Yeah, because I know it's in the library, the Pemberton Library too, but it says that I guess he translated narratives from the Lil'wat elders. Did your mom did you speak with him, or I'm not too sure
It was
how
more
long he
her
was here.
parents.
Okay.
Or her auntie and uncle,
Yeah.
Susan Mitchell and Sam telling the stories to Jan.
Yeah.
There have been a few orthographers, as I know them, that came through our community and interviewed the elders, got our information, and Jan was the one that worked with a mom and the board to set up our orthography, what writing system we were going to follow. And that was, well, when I was going to school, teaching, he worked with us then. That's the lowest grade I ever got, was our language.
It was really hard to, because I speak fluently and I wasn't really paying attention how to write it, or I can read it, but I don't know how to spell it. So anyhow,
She designed the school. I mean, her teachers or her family that she told to take teaching. We designed the school, and one part of it's like our home pit houses we used to live in. And so the super courses are to do that, and the only part we're really missing now is embedding the full language. I think they only get that mostly when they go to the Stein now. Because her brother Larry was also the bus driver, because she told him he had to go to work. Because he needed a bus driver. Yeah, we worked for how many months without pay?
I have a question. What do you see as the future of Mount Currie schools? I know the new Tizil Learning Center is going in, and there's seems to me to be many more people dancing and going to school in Mount Currie. But then you also say you're losing people with the language.
Well, with the new changes, I think it's called the reconciliation, government truth reconciliation. They are providing more funding for us to put in more people that are fluent. Mount Currie has quite a few fluent speakers still, more than a lot of places do. But I think a handful of them have developed dementia. So we're losing it very, very fast. So that's part of one of my mandates as a manager of the Culture Center. We don't just run the Culture Center, we do all these programs as well. And it's to document our language. Transcribe all the stories. We've made 2 dictionaries now and 1 herb book.
That's right.
So it's all documented, and this is...
so then there's teachable material.
Yes, and it's recorded as well on First Voices. Okay. And we still have lots of work to do, and I'm not a fluent speaker, but I read and I write it. And I apply for all the programs, anything that comes along, I apply for the funding so we can do some more documentation.
So you see maybe less of a fight for funding in the future?
I see less right now. I mean, it's coming towards us. We just have to be prepared now to put it to good use. So with the Tizil, our new, those buildings that our college is in by the tracks, they're all, what do you call those, trailers.
Yes.
And they were given to us only to use for like 5 years until we applied it. I think they're 20 years old now. I think they're about 20 years old and they're leaking and moldy and everything, but that's what our college was now. We applied for funding. And I remember when Zachloash, I forget his name, English name, we called him Zachloash because he's really stretched like tall. But Robert Schuster, he was applying for the funding for a new college. And he said, I need to strengthen this somehow. And I said, well, write up a letter and put my programs in there and tell them all this, what we do here. And just set it up and I'll sign it and send it away. And then I was so shocked when they came and they said, you know, you're moving from here to the new school. I am. Well, you signed for that culture component of the proposal, helped boost it, and they got the money for it.
Okay.
So we have a culture center in that, in the new one. Yes.
So you're moving?
So I'm moving. We're supposed to be getting ready to move April 2018 or May. Yeah.
But there's been a lot of demand for the college courses in Mount Currie.
There has, yes. We try to, I'm also on the board because it's my, education is my portfolio and I work the culture. So as a portfolio for education, we put it out on what we know is coming. So for example, the new school is going to be built or more homes. So then we bring those trades in and try to embed all the culture and the language in as well. So we're working more as a team, as a whole. Before we were always struggling for funding, so we're all doing our own little thing, right, just to keep ourselves going. But I see a real change now at working together, using each other's funding or putting this program up.
For a community plan.
For a community plan. our news site was, we designed that too, and it's called our sports players are called Eagles, because if you see the
From the air.
top of the
Yes, I've seen it.
Down the aerial
Yeah.
view.
aerial view, yeah, it's an eagle,
Yeah.
shaped of an eagle, yes.
I have a question. When did the written component of your language begin?
The written part?
The written part, when did you
I started in 72.
72, and then we didn't have no alphabet before, but then after when Jan van Eyck came in, we had it all. So we sell the books over at the cultural center. And then anyways, we did have a summer camp program too, like, you know, kids
Oh,
come
yes.
home from residential school. A lot of them didn't have a place to go, come back to, so we'd have a summer camp program going. So then we started to try and teach them the language there too as well. And they would go hiking in all our different areas, you know, to make them realize that they belong there. So that's what we did too.
282 place names. That's what they would learn at summer camp or whenever we travel. We have 282 documented.
Oh, it's at Falcoon, it's the Signal Hill School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because our people used to go in the mountain there and signal our people that they're coming.
We have old man Tilalush, who is your grandfather,
Mhm.
would sing a song, and he had the vision when he knew someone was coming from a different community, so he would sing that welcome song. That's how we do the welcome song now, to tell that story.
Can you say his name again?
Tilalush, that's the Williams last name. But of course, when the government changed our names, they gave us English names. Mhm.
Yeah.
Tilalush.
Probably because we couldn't pronounce them. You know, it's quite hard for us to
Yes.
pronounce.
It's easier as you use them.
Well, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to tell us this important story. We don't have very much information on Mount Currie schools, other than a little bit about the Mount Currie Day School, and that Mary Louise Williams was the first principal. And then the record stops. So you've added in everything since then. So thank you.